you ever wondered why, no matter how much you try to move forward after your divorce, your heart still feels heavy, your emotions feel overwhelming, and it's like you're stuck in an endless loop of pain and confusion? Let me tell you something most people won't. This isn't just sadness, it's grief, and it's trying to tell you something. If you don't know how to navigate it, it can keep you trapped for years. But today, we're breaking that cycle, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum, my beautiful sisters. Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Welcome to the HCM podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Khan, a divorce recovery coach guiding sisters like you through their healing process. I am so grateful that you're here with me today. Whether you're tuning in for the first time or you've been on this journey with me for a while, I want you to know that this space is for you. First, I just want to say thank you for all the love, messages and du'as after my first podcast episode. It means the world to me to know that so many of you found it helpful and that you're feeling the benefits of implementing the self-ruqya guide I shared with you. Alhamdulillah, I wanted to create that episode because I know firsthand how spiritual blockages can weigh us down, keep us feeling stuck and disconnected. For those of you who missed it, let me quickly bring you up to speed. We talked about what spiritual blockages are and how they silently impact your healing journey after divorce. How the Quran and authentic du'as are the most powerful tools to lift these blockages, reconnect with Allah, and start feeling that first sense of peace and relief. If you haven't had a chance to listen yet, I highly recommend you go back and catch up. It really is a foundational step in your healing journey. Now, for those of you who are new here, or maybe this is your first time tuning in, let me remind you that I'm not just speaking to you as a coach, I'm speaking as a sister who's been exactly where you are. I've been through the deep, overwhelming pain of divorce. I felt disconnected, stuck, and unsure of how to move forward. And like so many of you, I searched for answers. I tried everything, therapy, books, all the things. But it wasn't until I began to combine faith-centered healing, emotional mastery, and actionable strategies that I finally started to see real transformation. This is the journey I've walked, mastered over a decade, and it's why I'm so passionate about sharing it with you, because I know how much you deserve to heal, to thrive, and to find peace again after something as painful as divorce. So let's get into today's episode on your heart state, as important it is to connect our souls to Allah and His words via the Quran. We also need to address other areas where blockages may be present. Removing spiritual blockages is just step one. It's like clearing the path so you can start moving forward. And now that you're beginning to reconnect spiritually, there's something else we need to address, something that many sisters overlook: your heart state and the process of grief. This is often the second major cause of feeling stuck after divorce. Grief doesn't just look like sadness, it's complex, it's messy, and it can keep us paralyzed if we don't know how to navigate it. Today, we're going to uncover what the 5 stages of post-divorce grief really look like, how these stages can hold you back when left unaddressed, and most importantly, how you can start moving through these stages with intention, faith, and actionable steps so you can transform your pain into healing, inshallah. So grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's dive in, because this episode could be the shift you've been waiting for. Alright, my beautiful sisters, let's talk about something that's not often addressed properly. You see, once you've started to reconnect spiritually, many of you may still feel stuck emotionally. And you might be wondering, why do I still feel like this? I'm praying, I'm doing self-ruqya, I'm trying to move forward, so why does it still feel so heavy? What staying stuck looks like. You may feel overwhelmed with emotions that seem to have a life of their own: anger toward your ex, toward yourself, even toward Allah, and you might feel ashamed to admit it. Guilt over what happened, over how the divorce has impacted your children, your family, or even your own life. Loneliness, even when you're surrounded by people who love you, because nobody really gets it. Confusion, wondering, why can't I just move on? Everyone says time heals, why am I still hurting? And the truth is, when we don't recognize this grief for what it is, it can feel like we're walking in circles, cycling through the same pain over and over again. You might tell yourself, I should be over this by now, but every time you try to move forward, it's like an invisible weight pulls you back. Why does this happen? When we think of grief, we often picture someone sitting quietly, crying, maybe feeling sad. But grief is so much more complex than that. It's not linear, it doesn't have a start and end date, it's messy, and it shows up in different ways for everyone. Here's something important to understand. Anytime a person experiences a loss, whether it's a divorce, a breakup, losing a loved one, a job, or even a pet, You go through the 5 psychological stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. It's inevitable. This is just how we're wired as human beings. It's psychology, and it can't be avoided. Grief is grief, and as humans, we're wired to feel it. It's part of our psychological process. Now, let's pause for a second, sis. As you're listening, ask yourself, which stage do I feel stuck in right now? Is it anger? Guilt? Depression? Identifying this is the first step to moving forward. And here's the key. If we don't learn how to navigate these stages effectively, we risk staying stuck in them. Even if you look like you've moved on the outside, like changing jobs, starting a new relationship, or even building a new routine, that unprocessed grief stays heavy in your heart. It holds you back from truly feeling light, free, and ready for the next chapter of your life. And you risk it coming back to bite you when you really don't want it to. I know, it's annoying. But grief doesn't disappear on its own. It's not something we can ignore or shove under the rug. When we try to suppress it, we don't actually move on. We just end up getting stuck in one of the stages. This is why understanding and navigating grief is so essential for your healing. Here's the truth, sis. When nobody teaches us how to navigate these stages, we start to believe the problem is us. We start to think, maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm broken. But the beautiful thing is there's a way to work through it. That's what I'm going to help you with today, inshallah, because you, my sister, are not broken and you are not alone. Together, we'll uncover how you can release the heaviness, step into clarity, and move toward the person you are meant to become. Grief is a natural part of healing. It's something we have to move through in order to get to the other side. And when we do that, when we face it with intention, faith, and the right tools, that's when transformation happens. That's when you start to release the pain. That's when the confusion turns into clarity, the heaviness turns into lightness, and you begin to see the person you're becoming, the stronger, wiser, more resilient version of yourself that Allah has been shaping all along. You don't have to stay stuck in this forever. There's a way out, and I'm going to show you how. This is your journey, and you're already one step closer to healing. Now, let's talk about the solution. The truth is, healing emotionally after divorce requires a lot of understanding and navigating the 5 stages of grief. These stages are your roadmap for transformation. Stage 1, denial. At first, it's hard to accept reality. You might find yourself thinking, this can't be happening. Maybe it's just a bad phase. Maybe we'll fix this. Denial is like a shield your mind uses to protect you from the full impact of the loss. And while it might seem easier to stay here, staying in denial means you can't begin to truly heal. Stage 2, anger. Once reality starts to sink in, the anger can hit. You might feel angry at your ex for what they did, at yourself for allowing it to happen, or even at Allah for putting you through this. You may ask, why me, Ya Allah? Why did this happen to me? And I want you to know it's okay to feel anger. It's a natural part of grief. But here's the thing. Anger, when left unchecked, can start to consume you. It becomes like a fire that burns everything in its path. The key here is to acknowledge it without letting it control you. Stage 3, bargaining. This is when you start replaying scenarios in your head, trying to negotiate with the past. What if I had tried harder? What if I didn't say that? What if I stayed quiet instead? Sisters, I know this stage can feel so painful because it's filled with regret and what ifs, but the reality is you can't change the past. Dwelling here only keeps you stuck, pulling you further away from peace and clarity. Stage 4, depression. This stage is often the hardest. It feels like a heavy fog that won't lift. You might feel exhausted, unmotivated, and completely overwhelmed. It's that deep sadness that makes even getting out of bed feel like an achievement. And here's what I want you to know. You're not weak for feeling this way. You're not broken. Grief can be heavy, but just know it's not permanent. I want you to remind yourself of Allah's mercy, that even in your darkest moments, He is there. He sees you, He hears you, and He has promised that with hardship comes ease. The key to moving through this stage is mind mastery. Mastering your mind and building a fort around it so no negativity can infiltrate it. And yes, it's entirely possible. I'll show you how later. Stage 5, acceptance. And finally, we reach acceptance. This is where the transformation happens. Acceptance doesn't necessarily mean all those feelings disappear overnight. What it does mean is that you stop resisting. You accept Allah's decree, knowing that He does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. You begin to trust that this was part of a greater plan, one that will ultimately lead you to something better and elevate you to higher stations. And when you reach this stage, sisters, something shifts. You start to feel lighter. You begin to rediscover and reinvent your identity and see the possibilities that lie ahead. You realize that this divorce does not define you, it's just one chapter of your story. In fact, it's that chapter where you use that setback as a setup to your big success. It becomes the fuel to drive you. Here's the beautiful part. When you learn to navigate these stages intentionally, guided by faith and actionable strategies, you transform. You go from feeling stuck in your pain, heavy with anger, guilt, or regret, disconnected from yourself, your faith, and your future, to feeling peace in your heart, knowing that Allah is in control. Clarity about your journey, your identity, and your next steps. Hope for your future because you trust in Allah's plan and believe that better days are ahead. This is the path to true healing. This is how you go from surviving to thriving after divorce, inshallah. So as we move forward, I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself, this grief is not here to destroy you, it's here to shape you. It's part of your transformation if you're willing to move through it. Now, I don't want to leave you with just knowledge. I want you to take one small actionable step today that will help you start moving through this process, even if you're only at the very beginning. One of the most powerful ways to begin processing grief is to recognize and name where you are right now. Which stage are you in? This awareness alone can create a shift and give you the clarity to start taking intentional steps forward. Here's what I want you to do. Step 1, take a quiet moment for yourself. Find a quiet spot, grab a notebook or even just a piece of paper and take a deep breath. Ground yourself in this moment and remind yourself that this is a safe space just between you and Allah. Step 2, reflect and write down the following. Ask yourself this simple question. What am I feeling right now? Which stage of grief do I think I'm in? Is it denial? Do you find yourself avoiding reality or saying, it wasn't that bad? Is it anger? Are you feeling frustrated at your ex, yourself, or even Allah? Is it bargaining? Are you replaying the past, thinking about what you could have done? Is it depression? Do you feel a heaviness or sadness that just won't lift? Take your time and write it down. Putting it into words helps you acknowledge where you are, and acknowledging it is the very first step to moving through it. Step 3, make a dua for that stage. Once you've identified where you are, I want you to turn to Allah. Raise your hands in dua, no matter how heavy your heart feels, and say, Ya Allah, I am feeling, then insert stage, anger, sadness, confusion then. I turn to you because you are the one who heals hearts. Help me move through this stage with your mercy. Show me the way on what I must do to overcome this. Strengthen me and replace my pain with peace and trust in your decree. This simple step, naming the stage and turning to Allah, will help you feel lighter because you're no longer carrying it alone. You've handed it over to the Almighty to guide you on next steps on how to overcome it. Now, I want to share a couple of stories with you, real stories of sisters who are exactly where you might be right now. Let me tell you about a sister I worked with recently. When she first reached out to me, she was completely stuck in the depression stage. She told me, I feel like I'm drowning in this sadness. I've tried everything, therapy, journaling, talking to friends, but it's like I'm going in circles. Nothing is helping me actually move forward. When we started working together, we didn't just focus on the surface. We combined deep emotional reflection, actionable tools, and most importantly, Quranic principles that bring true healing. I guided her to understand the stage she was in, to process her emotions with compassion, and to reconnect with Allah's mercy. And subhanAllah, just a few weeks later, she told me, this is the first time I felt hope in years. For the first time, I can see a way forward. Her story shows that it's not about ignoring your grief or rushing through it. It's about understanding it and moving through it intentionally, step by step, with faith as your anchor. Another sister came to me and she was holding on to so much anger at her ex, at the betrayal she experienced, and even at herself for not seeing the signs. She felt stuck and said, I can't let go of this anger and I know it's holding me back, but I don't know how to move past it. We worked together to break this down, exploring what that anger was really about and giving her tools to process it through both emotional healing and spiritual reconnection. We used specific du'as and Quranic verses to help her release that anger and trust in Allah's wisdom and plan. And alhamdulillah, she said to me, I didn't think I could ever feel peace again, but I do. I've let go of the anger and now I can focus on building a better version of myself. Sisters, these stories are proof that you are not alone in this. Whether you're feeling stuck in depression, overwhelmed by anger, or cycling through guilt and confusion, there is a way out. It's not about pretending the grief doesn't exist or suppressing your emotions. It's about learning how to navigate these stages so you can break free from what's holding you back and step into the peace and clarity that Allah has planned for you. And if these sisters can do it, so can you. Now, one of the most common things I hear from sisters is, I've tried therapy before to process my divorce pain and it didn't work for me. I still feel stuck. And I hear you, sis. This is something so many of my clients have shared with me. They've spent months, sometimes even years, in therapy. And while therapy can have its place for many women, it feels like they're just talking it out without truly moving forward. Here's why. Traditional therapy often focuses only on the top level. You're encouraged to talk about your pain, your feelings, struggles, and the past. It rarely focuses on the future. It can often become a container for trauma dumping. And while that may help to an extent, it's more for just letting off steam or venting. And let's be honest, we all tend to feel a little better after a good rant. But the effects are temporary, much like that of therapy. You only tend to feel good as you do it. Also, true healing isn't just emotional, it's spiritual too. As Muslim women, our hearts and souls are deeply connected to our faith. But conventional therapy doesn't address that connection, and it doesn't always offer the faith-based tools you need to heal from the inside out. On top of that, you're often talking to someone who hasn't walked in your shoes, they haven't been through a divorce, and they can't fully understand the unique struggles you're facing. This is why my approach is different, even though I've also qualified in counselling. When I work with sisters, we combine 3 critical pillars of healing. Emotional mastery, so you can process your pain, understand your emotions, and release what's holding you back, clearing your heart from any rust. Self-awareness and mind mastery, so you recognize exactly where you are in your journey and where you need to go next. Quranic principles and healing, so your healing is deeply rooted in faith and guided by Allah's mercy and wisdom. And that's why so many sisters have said things like, in just one session with you has helped me more than months of therapy. Allahumma barik, because this isn't just about talking or trauma dumping. It's about learning the tools, the strategies, and the spiritual guidance to truly move forward and reclaim your peace with knowledge that you can use for a lifetime. And sisters, I'm going to be talking more about this in much more detail in my upcoming free webinar. I'll be bringing all the pillars of healing together and showing you the exact roadmap to move forward, inshallah. If you haven't signed up yet, make sure you do. It's free, with an optional donation to charity if you would like to support our foundation. Another common fear many sisters face is this: what if it's too hard emotionally to face the pain? Sisters, I know that diving into your emotions and grief can feel overwhelming. The thought of facing that pain might scare you, and honestly, that's completely normal. But here's the good news. Healing isn't about being consumed by your pain. It's about moving through it step by step with intention and trust in Allah. And I know it is a scary thought. What if I can't handle it if I open that can of worms? This fear can stop us from taking the necessary steps. But let me tell you, this isn't you. It could be the shaitan, spiritual afflictions, or unprocessed grief that's causing this fear, keeping you stuck and stopping you from moving on. I know it's hard. I've been there too. Even I've asked myself, what if I can't handle the healing process? But here's the truth. Healing doesn't have to be hard. Yes, it takes effort, and it's not necessarily easy, but it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. When approached with intention, the healing journey can actually become the most rewarding and beautiful journey you'll ever go on. You'll start to love yourself in a way you never have before. That's my promise. Yes, healing can get a little messy here and there, but it doesn't have to be chaotic. Especially when you choose an intentional path to healing, relying only on Allah and His wisdom to guide you every step of the way. Grief is part of the human experience, and Allah, in His infinite wisdom, has given us tools in the Quran and Sunnah to navigate it. The truth is, avoiding the pain only allows it to linger in your heart, holding you back. But when you lean into it with the right guidance and faith, you'll begin to see that your pain isn't permanent. It's paving the way for transformation. And remember, Allah never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear. So my sisters, as we wrap up today, I want to remind you of this. Grief is not something to fear or suppress. It's a process. And when you learn to move through it with faith, intention, and the right tools, you'll start to see that this pain isn't permanent and can actually elevate you in the most beautiful ways. It's paving the way for your transformation. This grief you're feeling, it's not here to break you. It's here to shape you into a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of yourself, inshallah. Now that we've talked about the emotional pillar of healing, In our next episode, we're going to go even deeper into the mental side of your transformation, mastering your mind. I'm going to show you how to reprogram your thoughts to break free from anxiety, hopelessness, negative self-talk that keeps you stuck, and depression, which is one of the key stages of grief that affects most of us the most. We'll explore how the power of your thoughts can help you step into your next chapter with strength, confidence, and a renewed sense of purpose, inshallah. If you found this episode helpful in any way, please kindly subscribe to my new YouTube channel. I'd love to grow this with you ladies. And also share it with a sister who needs to hear this. You never know whose life you might touch with just a simple share. And don't forget to join me for the upcoming free webinar, where I'll guide you even further with practical faith-centered strategies to help you heal, reconnect with yourself, and step into your new future. And if you have any questions you want to ask me, just sign up to the VIP ticket for only £37. You get to have an additional Q&A session with me and get a taster of my coaching and see if you find it beneficial. You also get to learn from the insights of other sisters' questions. As a bonus, I also throw in my personal 2025 success planner for free, which is worth £47, as my New Year gift to you so you can start your new year right. Plus, every VIP ticket holder gets automatically entered into our prize draw to win a free deep dive coaching call with me worth £97. I made it an absolute steal for you ladies, so no excuses if you're really ready to step into the best versions of yourself and get unstuck from your divorce. Reserve your spot now by clicking the link on this page or sending me a DM on Instagram. I can't wait to see you there and show you how to take the next steps in your healing journey, inshallah. It's free and jam-packed with value. I'll see you there. Until next time, keep going, sis. You've got this, and I'm with you every step of the way.